everyone! So last month I did an author spotlight on Charles Dickens and a lot of people requested, surprise surprise, Thomas Hardy. So that is what you guys are getting today as I try desperately not to drop this massive pile of books. So Thomas Hardy is a late Victorian novelist. His dates are 1840 to 1928. I have read, I want to say, around half of his works. I don't have all of his works owned yet. I try not to have too many unread works, but I do have about 4 or 5. So I'm going to go through the works that I've read, the works that I still have to read, and just talk about like good places to start with Thomas Hardy and what to expect when you're reading Thomas Hardy, so you guys can kind of decide if Thomas Hardy is for you. So the first work in my massive pile is Far from the Madding Crowd. Now this was the second Hardy that I read, and I would actually recommend this as one of the best places to start. Far from the Madding Crowd is a much less frustrating story, I find, than Tess of the Durbervilles, which was the work that I actually started reading Hardy from, and it kind of took me a while to want to read more Hardy. I absolutely love this Penguin English Library edition. It has bees all over it, and it's just really pretty. So I'm going to quickly read you a quick synopsis from the back so you guys can decide if this is going to be your first Hardy if you haven't started yet. Hardy's powerful novel of swift sexual passion and slow burning loyalty centers on Bathsheba Everdeen, which, side note, best name ever. A proud working woman whose life is complicated by 3 different men: respectable farmer Boldwood, seductive Sergeant Troy, and devoted Gabriel, making her the object of scandal and betrayal. Absolutely fantastic. There is a really great movie adaptation, with Carey Mulligan in it, that was recently done, and it's absolutely beautifully shot, and I would say it's fairly faithful to the work, so it definitely captures the feeling of Far from the Madding Crowd. So after you have finished this one, I would definitely recommend giving that a watch. Next up is the one that I first read, and that is Tess of the Durbervilles. I found this work, it took me a while to read it. It was a little bit frustrating. I do really enjoy Tess, but it is not one of my favorite Hardys. The ending is absolutely spectacular. The ending is just, I have an adaptation from the BBC on, like, that I've bought from iTunes that I need to watch, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. So that's high on my list of adaptations to watch right now. I'm working my way through Little Dorrit, so it's about 13 episodes, so I've got a ways to go. So I'll just quickly read the back. With its sensitive depiction of a wronged pure woman and its powerful criticism of Victorian sexual hypocrisy, Tess of the Durbervilles shocked readers on its publication. Its heroine is a poor country girl, Tess, whose encounter with her distant aristocratic relatives, especially the handsome, cruel Alec, leaves her broken and haunted by a secret that could ruin her. A very different man, Angel Clare, offers her salvation, but Tess must choose whether to reveal her past or remain silent in the hope of a peaceful future. I would say this is probably a good 3rd or 4th Hardy. I find the characters of Angel Clare and Tess to be very frustrating. They're very much almost, in a way, they don't have a lot of depth of character. Tess and Angel are just very good people, and they're kind of manipulated by everyone around them, and I find that very frustrating. Like, they don't have a lot of personality. Their main personality trait is that they are good. I do think that this is a really important novel of Hardy's to read, and I do really enjoy it, but I would maybe not start here. Next up is another one of my favorites, and one that I would recommend actually starting with if you don't feel like the Far from the Madding Crowd, is The Return of the Native. There is a fantastic audiobook of this narrated by Alan Rickman, so if you prefer audiobooks, definitely check that out. And this one, I read this earlier this year and I just absolutely loved it. Even more than Bathsheba Everdeen, I just love Eustacia Vi. I think she is absolutely fantastic as a heroine. So I'll quickly read the back. A powerful mythical portrayal of tragic lives, The Return of the Native is set against the brooding backdrop of Egdon Heath and tells the story of tempestuous beauty Eustacia, who looks to the return of Clym Yeobright from Paris to bring her escape from the stifling community she lives in. But Clym turns out to have dreams of his own, and they will clash fatally with Eustacia's passionate longings. Yeah, I haven't found an adaptation of this, but I do absolutely love this. I think this is very dramatic. It's frustrating in a way, because at some points you're like, if you people would just actually listen to each other, you wouldn't have these issues, but they don't, and it's fantastic, and just, oh, it's so dramatic, and just, I really, really love this book. Next up is one that was highly recommended to me, and I do really enjoy it. It's definitely in my top 5 of the Hardy books that I've read, and that is The Mayor of Casterbridge. I often mispronounce this as The Mayor of Castlebridge. I do realize this. It's just the way my eyes read the word Casterbridge, but I am getting it right this time, guys. So, this is just such a preposterous story in a way, but it's so fantastic. So, the moving, humane tragedy of a deeply flawed and self-destructive man, the Mayor of Casterbridge, is the story of Michael Henchard, who sells his wife and baby, daughter at a country fair in a fit of drunken anger. Over the following years, he establishes himself as a respectable pillar of a community of Casterbridge, but cannot escape his shameful past, or himself. Yeah, he sells his wife and child. Like, that's at the very beginning. Like, that's in the first chapter that this happened. And it's just, oh, it's such a great book. I would maybe say this is a good second place to start, like a second book. So maybe you've read Far from the Madding Crowd or The Return of the Native. This is definitely a good second choice. Next up is actually one of my least favorite Hardys that I've read, mostly just because it's not very memorable, and I feel like I need to reread this, and it's one of the shorter ones, and that is Under the Greenwood Tree. Now, Under the Greenwood Tree is quite short. It's only, I think it's just 200 pages, whereas all the other ones are around 300 or 400 pages. This just, it doesn't stand out very much to me in my mind. Like, I know I've read this, and I can vaguely remember the plot details, but it just, so it's not, yeah, it wasn't very memorable. But a story of love and passion tinged with melancholy for a disappearing rural world, Under the Greenwood Tree evokes life in a village of Melstock. When 2 newcomers arrive in the village, they both create a furor. The Reverend Maybold by bringing modern ways to the church choir, and the school teacher, Fancy Day. Yes, he named one of his characters Fancy Day. By stealing the hearts of 3 men, Hardy's gentle pastoral early novel introduced readers to his fictional county of Wessex for the first time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Wessex County before I continue on with the works. So Hardy created this fictional county. It's kind of an amalgamation of a couple of actual counties, and a lot of his works are set in Wessex County, so you do actually get some overlay from all the different works. In The Mayor of Casterbridge, you hear mention of characters from Far from the Madding Crowd, and that's one of the great things about reading Hardy's bibliography, is that you start to notice these little things. As the more you read of Hardy is the more you pick up on, so it's really neat. So next up is Jude the Obscure, which is a lot of people's favorites, and I don't dislike this novel. I did enjoy it. I just found it to be very emotionally manipulative. I would not recommend starting with this one. I would say that this is, like Tess of the Durbervilles, maybe a 3rd or 4th read. I would say definitely get a handle on Hardy's style before you start on this one. And unfortunately, I know all the other ones have been in the Penguin English Library editions. None of my Hardys match. I have them in Penguin English Library, I have them in Oxfordville Classics, I have a Black Spine, I have a Melville House one, so unfortunately there is no existing collection of complete Hardy novels, which drives me just up a wall, because I really want them just to be all, you know, right now I have them separated based on the type of novel, so all my Oxfords are together, all my Penguin English Libraries are together. I would like them to all be together, but unfortunately it's just not going to happen. And Jude the Obscure does come in a Penguin English Library, but it was out of print when I was going to read it, so I just got the Oxford. Jude Folly, poor and working class, longs to study at the University of Christminster, but he is rebuffed and trapped in a loveless marriage. He falls in love with his unconventional cousin, Sue Bridehead, and their refusal to marry when free to do so confirms their rejection of and by the world around them. The shocking fate that overtakes them is an indictment of a rigid and uncaring society. This is actually Hardy's last novel, and it's apparently his most controversial work, according to the back. It was published in 1895. After this, he ended up writing poetry. This is definitely a more mature novel, especially in comparison to Under the Greenwood Tree, I would say. And the part that I don't like is that, and I'm not giving anything away, is that there's a part in the novel and characters are introduced and it seems like they're introduced just to give shock value. That's what kind of turned me against this, and a lot of the time you're sitting there and you're shaking your head and you're wondering why these characters are making these choices, because they just keep worsening their lives, and it's a bit frustrating to read. That's why I wouldn't recommend this as a good place to start with Hardy. Next up is another one of my favorites, and that is The Woodlanders. And The Woodlanders, I can see this being a good second or third one. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to start, because I think if I hadn't read all the other works, which I think pretty much all of those I read before reading The Woodlanders. I think I read The Woodlanders before Jude the Obscure or after. They were right around the same time. But I absolutely love this novel. This is definitely my top 3 of the Hardys. This and The Return of the Native and Far from the Madding Crowd are definitely my top 3 Hardys so far that I've read, and I just absolutely adore this book. So the back says, "Love and the erratic heart are the center of Hardy's Woodland story. Set in the beautiful Blackmoor Vale, The Woodlanders concerns the fortunes of Giles Winterbourne, whose love for the well-to-do Grace Melbury is challenged by the arrival of the dashing and dissolute Dr. Edred Fitzpiers. When the mysterious Felice Charman further complicates the romantic entanglements, marital choice and class mobility become inextricably linked. Hardy's powerful novel depicts individuals in thrall to desire and the natural law that motivates them." Now, this can be a frustrating work in that the characters make poor choices, similar in the way that they do to Jude the Obscure, but what I like about this over Jude the Obscure is that I find that the characters are much more believable, they're much more human feeling than Jude the Obscure. In Jude the Obscure, people are downtrodden and you're frustrated with them because they're making poor choices, and you can see that they know that they're making poor choices. In this, people are just human and they're following their passions, and that is where it leads them wrong. And it's such a fantastic study of human nature that I just absolutely love it. So next up, now we're actually getting into the ones that I haven't read. So all of those I've read, and these aren't all of Hardy's novels, as I mentioned before. And now we're getting into the ones that I haven't read. So next up I have Wessex Tales, which is a collection of short stories by Hardy. I picked this up in the last summer, because it was Hardy and it was an Oxford edition, and why not? So the back says it has a bunch of different tales called The Three Strangers, a tradition of 1804, The Melancholy Hussar of the German Legion, The Withered Armed, Fellow Townsmen, Interlopers at the Nap, and The Distracted Preacher. In Wessex Tales, his first collection of short stories, Hardy recorded the legends, superstitions, local customs, and lore of a Wessex that was rapidly passing out of memory. But these tales also portray the social and economic stresses of Dorset in the 1880s and reveal Hardy's growing skepticism about the possibility of achieving personal and sexual satisfaction in the modern world. By turns humorous, ironic, macabre, and elegiac, these 7 stories show the range of Hardy's storytelling gifts. Okay, I'm probably not going to get... I dropped my books on the floor. I'm probably not going to get to that one particularly soon. It has been sitting on my shelf for a while, but I am more interested in reading the novels. I find short stories are not really my jam, but I will eventually get to it. Next up is Hardy's Desperate Remedies, which Hardy's first published work. Desperate Remedies moves the sensation novel into new territory. The anti-hero, Aeneas Manston, a physically alluring as he is evil, even fascinates the innocent Cytherea. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. I will have to look this up. Though she's in love with another man. When he cannot seduce her, Manston resorts to deception and blackmail and ever more desperate measures to achieve his ends. Yet this compelling story also raises the great questions underlying Hardy's major novels, which relate to the injustice of the class system, the treatment of women, probability and causality. This edition shows for the first time that the sensation novel was always Hardy's natural medium. So this is his first work. I will probably be reading this over the summer. It's not in the immediate future, but I will be getting through this relatively soon. Next up is Hardy's A Pair of Blue Eyes. Elfriede is the daughter of the rector of Endlestowe, a remote sea-swept parish in Cornwall based on St. Judelot, where Hardy began the book during the first days of his courtship with his first wife, Emma. Blue-eyed and high-spirited, Elfriede has little experience of the world beyond and becomes entangled with two men, the boyish architect Stephen Smith and the older literary man Henry Knight. The former friends become rivals and Elfriede faces an agonizing choice. Sounds interesting. Once again, one I will probably get through this summer, but not in the immediate future. Next up is my only black spine one, which is a Laodicean. Paula Power has inherited Stancy Castle from her father, a wealthy railway magnate. The ancient castle is in need of modernization, and she commissions George Somerset, a young architect, to undertake the work. When he declares his love for her, Paula is torn between her admiration for the forward-thinking Somerset and the old-fashioned romanticism of Captain de Stancy, whose family once owned the castle. Her indecision is not only romantic, however, for Paula earns sharp criticism from the local Baptist minister when she hesitates to enter the faith according to her father's dying wish. Sounds interesting. This, A Pair of Blue Eyes, and Desperate Remedies, Yamini, Ange, and I picked to read. We generally read about a Hardy a month, and we decided that these four were going to be our next four, so I will be getting to this in the near future, just not right away. The next work I picked up because it was quite cheap and I hadn't seen it before, and that is The Distracted Preacher, which is one of the Melville Art of the Novella ones. They're a little bit differently laid out than the other ones, so it's a bit harder to find the actual summary. Young Mr. Stockdale, filling in for the Methodist minister in a small village on the southern shore of England, feels his heart pining for his comely landlady, Lizzie Newberry, but she leads a mysterious life, keeping on hours and speaking in hushed tones to the townsfolk. As his love for her grows and his investigation of her deepens, he suddenly finds himself at the center of a hilarious high-stakes adventure, one that will ultimately force him to choose whether to follow his heart or his higher purpose. Along the way, he'll encounter slapstick hijinks and marauding band of cross-dressers. I'm probably going to read this relatively soon, maybe in the next couple weeks. I have this on my immediate TBR pile, and I'm really looking forward to it, especially after reading that. I didn't know what this was about until I just read that now. I mostly, with Hardy, I kind of just pick and choose, and as I'm working my way through his bibliography, I know I'll get to them at some point, so yes, I'm looking forward to reading that one. And then the final one I have here is Tawana Tower. Now, this is the last Penguin English Library one that I own. This is the one that I'm going to be reading pretty much immediately after, I'm filming this video on Friday. This video will go up on next Thursday, and I'll probably have started this by then. I'm reading this with Ange and Yamini and most likely Katie from Books and Things. So this is the next Hardy we're getting through, and this is the first one we are getting back into after Ange has given birth. So this is one of the shorter ones, which is really, we decided to pick a shorter one for our first one back, and I'm really looking forward to this one because it's been a whole month since I've read Hardy and I've missed him. Hardy's atmospheric, moving story of star-crossed lovers shows human beings at the mercy of forces far beyond their control, setting a tragic drama of human passion against a background of vast stellar space and scientific discovery. This is a different turn for Hardy. Tawana Tower tells the story of Lady Constantine, who breaks all the rules of decorum when she falls in love with the beautiful young Swithin St. Cleeve, her social inferior and 10 years her junior. Together in an ancient monument converted into an astronomical observation tower, they create their own private universe, until the pressures of the outside world threaten to destroy it. So this is quite a departure from some of Hardy's more naturalistic work, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this really long. I'm looking at the time on my viewer there, and it's about 20 minutes for this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed these kinds of videos. I will be doing another one next month. Let me know in the comments down below if there's any authors you would like me to get through. So far I've done Dickens and now Hardy. I might be doing Jane Austen next month, or maybe the Brontes. We will see. If you guys have any suggestions, let me know, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye!